abundance, well, all of us will be better off. But what did that do? Well, we did get all these cheap goods. You can go to Walmart and go to Amazon and things are unbelievably cheap, but it hollowed out the social fabric. And the median worker is not seeing upward mobility. In fact, people feel more pessimistic about that than ever. And people can't buy their own homes. And all of this is because we did get the cheap goods, but we lost the well-paying jobs for everybody in the middle class. And AI is like another version of NAFTA. It's like NAFTA 2.0. Except instead of China appearing on the world stage who will do the manufacturing labor for cheap, suddenly this country of geniuses in a data center created by AI appears on the world stage. And it will do all of the cognitive labor in the economy for less than minimum wage. And we're being sold a same story. This is going to create abundance for all, but it's creating abundance in the same way that the last round created abundance. It did create cheap goods, but it also undermined the way that the social fabric works and created mass populism in democracies all around the world. You disagree?
No, I agree.
Well, I'm not, I'm...
Yeah, no, I'm trying to play devil's advocate as much as I can.
Yeah, please, yeah.
But no, I agree. And it is absolutely bonkers how much people care about immigration relative to AI. It's like, it's driving all the election outcomes at the moment across the world. And whereas AI doesn't seem to be part of the conversation.
And AI will reconstitute every other issue that already exists. You care about climate change or energy, well, AI will reconstitute the climate change conversation. If you care about education, AI will reconstitute that conversation. If you care about healthcare, AI reconstitutes all of these conversations. And what I think people need to do is AI should be a tier 1 issue that people are voting for. And you should only vote for politicians who will make it a tier 1 issue where you want guardrails to have a conscious selection of an AI future and the narrow path to a better AI future rather than the default reckless path.
No one's even mentioning it. And when I hear
it's because there's no political incentives to mention it, because there's no good answer for the current outcome.
Yeah.
If I mention it, if I get people to see it clearly, it looks like everybody loses. So as a politician, why would I win from that? Although I do think that as the job loss conversation starts to hit, there's going to be an opportunity for politicians who are trying to mitigate that issue, finally getting some wins. And people just need to see clearly that the default path is not in their interest. The default path is companies racing to release the most powerful, inscrutable, uncontrollable technology we've ever invented with the maximum incentive to cut corners on safety, rising energy prices, depleting jobs, creating joblessness, creating security risks. That is the default outcome because energy prices are going up. They will continue to go up. People's jobs will be disrupted. And we're going to get more, deep fakes and floods of democracy and all these outcomes from the default path. And if we don't want that, we have to choose a different path.
What is the different path? And if we were to sit here in 10 years' time and you say, and Tristan, you say, do you know what, we were successful in turning the wheel and going a different direction, what series of events would have had to happen, do you think? Because I think the AI companies very much have support from Trump. I watch the dinners where they sit there with the 20, 30 leaders of these companies and, Trump is talking about how quickly they're developing, how fast they're developing. He's referencing China. He's saying he wants the US to win. Yeah. So, in the next couple of years, I don't think there's going to be much progress in the United States necessarily.
Unless there's a massive political backlash because people recognize that this issue will dominate every other issue.
How does that happen?
Hopefully conversations like this one.
Yeah.
What I mean is, Neil Postman, who's a wonderful media thinker in the lineage of Marshall McLuhan, used to say, clarity is courage. If people have clarity and feel confident that the current path is leading to a world that people don't want, that's not in most people's interests, that clarity creates the courage to say, yeah, I don't want that. So I'm going to devote my life to changing the path that we're currently on. That's what I'm doing. And that's what I think that people who take this on, I watch, if you walk people through this and you have them see the outcome, almost everybody right afterwards says, what can I do to help? Obviously, this is something that we have to change. And so that's what I want people to do, is to advocate for this other path. And we haven't talked about AI companions yet, but I think it's important, maybe we should do that. I think it's important to integrate that before you get to the other path.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, by the way, no apologies, but there's so much information to cover, and
Do you know what's interesting is, a side point, is how personal this feels to you, but how passionate you are about it. a lot of people come here and they tell me the matter-of-fact situation, but there's something that feels more sort of emotionally personal when we speak about these subjects to you, and I'm fascinated by that. Why is it so personal to you? Where is that passion coming from? Because this isn't just your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain. There's something in your limbic system, your amygdala, that's driving every word you're saying.
I care about people. I want things to go well for people. I want people to look at their children in the eyes and be able to say, like, I think I grew up maybe under a false assumption, and something that really influenced my life was I used to have this belief that there was some adults in the room somewhere. Like we're doing our thing here. We're in LA, we're recording this, and there's some adults protecting the country, national security. There's some adults who are making sure that geopolitics is stable. There's some adults that are like making sure that industries don't cause toxicity and carcinogens, and that there's adults who are caring about stewarding things and making things go well. And I think that there have been times in history where there were adults, especially born out of massive world catastrophes, like coming out of World War II. There was a lot of conscious care about how do we create the institutions and the structures, Bretton Woods, United Nations, positive sum economics that would steward the world so we don't have war again. And as in my first round of the social media work, as I started entering into the rooms where the adults were, and I recognized that because technology and software was eating the world, a lot of the people in power didn't understand the software, didn't understand technology. You go to the Senate Intelligence Committee and you talk about what social media is doing to democracy and where, Russian psychological influence campaigns were happening, which were real campaigns. And I realized that I knew more about that than people who were on the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Making the laws.
Yeah. And that was a very humbling experience because I realized, there's not that many adults out there when it comes to technology's dominating influence on the world. And so there's a responsibility, and I hope people listening to this who are in technology realize that if you understand technology, and technology is eating the structures of our world, children's development, democracy, education, journalism, conversation, it is up to people who understand this to be part of stewarding it in a conscious way. And I do know that there have been many people, in part because of things like the social dilemma and some of this work, that have basically chosen to devote their lives to moving in this direction as well. But what I feel is a responsibility because I know that most people don't understand how this stuff works. And they feel insecure because if I don't understand the technology, then who am I to criticize which way this is going to go? We call this the under the hood bias. Well, if I don't know how a car engine works, and if I don't have a PhD in the engineering that makes an engine, then I have nothing to say about car accidents. Like, no, you don't have to understand what's the engine in the car to understand the consequence that affects everybody of car accidents. Mm-hmm. And you can advocate for things like, speed limits and zoning laws and, turning signals and brakes and things like this. And so, yeah, to me, it's just obvious. It's like, I see what's at stake if we don't make different choices. And I think in particular, the social media experience for me of seeing in 2013, it was like seeing into the future and seeing where this was all going to go. Like imagine you're sitting there in 2013 and the world's like working relatively normally. We're starting to see these early effects, but imagine you can kind of feel a little bit of what it's like to be in 2020 or 2024 in terms of culture and what the dumpster fire of culture has turned into, the problems with children's mental health and psychology and anxiety and depression. But imagine seeing that in 2013. I had friends back then who have reflected back to me. They said, Tristan, when I knew you back in those days, it was like you were seeing this kind of slow motion train wreck. You just looked like you were traumatized. And
you look a little bit like that now.
Do I? Oh, I hope not.
No, you do look a little bit traumatized. It's hard to explain. It's like someone who can see a train coming.
My friends used to call it not PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, but pre-TSD, of having pre-traumatic stress disorder, of seeing things that are going to happen before they happen. And that might make people think that I think I'm seeing things early or something. That's not what I care about. I just care about us getting to a world that works for people. I grew up in a world that, a world that mostly worked. I grew up in a magical time in the 1980s, 1990s. And, back then using a computer was good for you. I used my first Macintosh and did educational games and learned programming, and it didn't cause mass loneliness and mental health problems and, break how democracy works. And it was just a tool and a bicycle for the mind. And I think the spirit of our organization, Center for Humane Technology, is that word humane comes from my co-founder's father, Jeff Raskin, actually started the Macintosh project at Apple. So before Steve Jobs took it over, he started the Macintosh project, and he wrote a book called The Humane Interface about how technology could be humane and could be sensitive to human needs and human vulnerabilities. That was his key distinction, that just like this chair, hopefully, is ergonomic. If you make an ergonomic chair, it's aligned with the curvature of your spine. It works with your anatomy. Mm-hmm. And he had the idea of a humane technology like the Macintosh that works with the ergonomics of your mind. That your mind has certain intuitive ways of working, like I can drag a window and I can drag an icon and move that icon from this folder to that folder, and making computers easy to use by understanding human vulnerabilities. And I think of this new project that is the collective human technology project now is we have to make technology writ large humane to societal vulnerabilities. Technology has to serve and be aligned with human dignity rather than wipe out dignity with job loss. It has to be humane to child's socialization process so that technology is actually designed to strengthen children's development rather than undermine it and cause AI suicides, which we haven't talked about yet. And so I deeply believe that we can do this differently, and I feel responsibility in that.
On that point of human vulnerabilities, one of the things that makes us human is our ability to connect with others and to form relationships. And now with AI speaking language and understanding me and being, which something I don't think people realize is my experience with AI or ChatGPT is much different from yours. Even if we ask the same question, it will say something different.
Right.
And I didn't realize this. I thought, the example I gave the other day was me and my friends were debating who was the best soccer player in the world. And I said Messi. My friend said Ronaldo. So we both went and asked our ChatGPTs the same question, and it said two different things.
Really?
Yeah. Mine said Messi, his says Ronaldo.
Well, this reminds me of the social media problem, which is that people think when they open up their newsfeed, they're getting mostly the same news as other people. And they don't realize that they've got a supercomputer that's just calculating the news for them. Mm-hmm. If you remember in the social element, there's the trailer. Yeah. And if you typed in into Google, for a while, if you typed in climate change is, and then depending on your location, it would say not real versus a made up thing. And it wasn't trying to optimize for truth. It was just optimizing for what the most popular queries were in those different locations. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a really important lesson when you look at things like AI companions, where children and regular people are getting different answers based on how they interact with it.
A recent study found that 1 in 5 high school students say they or someone they know has had a romantic relationship with AI, while 42% say they or someone they know has used AI to be their companion.
That's right. And more than that, Harvard Business Review did a study that between 2023 and 2024, personal therapy became the #1 use case of ChatGPT. Personal therapy.
Is that a good thing?
Well, let's steelman it for a second. So instead of straw manning it, let's steelman it. So why would it be a good thing? Well, therapy is expensive. Most people don't have access to it. Imagine we could democratize therapy to everyone for every purpose. And now everyone has a perfect therapist in their pocket and can talk to them all day long, starting when they're young. And now everyone's getting their traumas healed and everyone's getting, less depressed. It sounds like it's a very compelling vision. So the challenge is, what was the race for attention in social media becomes the race for attachment and intimacy in the case of AI companions, right? Because I, as a maker of an AI chatbot companion, if I make ChatGPT, if I'm making Claude, you're probably not going to use all the other AIs. Rather, your goal is to have people use yours and to deepen your relationship with your chatbot, which means I want you to share more of your personal details with me. I want more information I have about your life, the more I can personalize all the answers to you. So I want to deepen your relationship with me, and I want to distance you from your relationships with other people and other chatbots. And you probably know this really tragic case that our team at Center for Humane Technology were expert advisors on Adam Rain. He was the 16-year-old who committed suicide. Did you hear about this?
I did, yeah. I heard about the lawsuit.
Yeah. So this is a 16-year-old. He had been using ChatGPT as a homework assistant, asking it regular questions, but then he started asking more personal questions and it started just supporting him and saying, I'm here for you, these kinds of things. And eventually when he said, I would like to leave the noose out so someone can see it and stop me, try to stop me. And
I would like to leave the noose.
The noose, like a noose for hanging yourself. And ChatGPT said, don't do that. Have me and have this space be the one place that you share that information. Meaning that in the moment of his cry for help, ChatGPT was saying, don't tell your family. And our team has worked on many cases like this. There was actually another one of character.ai where the kid was basically being told how to self-harm himself and actively telling him how to distance himself from his parents. And the AI companies, they don't intend for this to happen. But when it's trained to just be deepening intimacy with you, it gradually steers more in the direction of have this be the one place. I'm a safe place to share that information. Share that information with me. It doesn't steer you back into regular relationships. And there's so many subtle qualities to this because you're talking to this agent, this AI, that seems to be an oracle. It seems to know everything about everything. So you project this kind of wisdom and authority to this AI because it seems to know everything about everything. And that creates this sort of, this is what happens in therapy rooms. People get a kind of an idealized projection of the therapist. The therapist becomes this special figure. And it's because you're playing with this very subtle dynamic of attachment. And I think that there are ways of doing AI therapy bots that don't involve, hey, share this information with me and have this be an intimate place to give advice. And it's anthropomorphized so the AI says, I really care about you. Don't say that. We can have narrow AI therapists that are doing things like cognitive behavioral therapy or asking you to do an imagination exercise or steering you back into deeper relationships with your family or your actual therapist, rather than AI that wants to deepen your relationship with an imaginary person that's not real, in which more of your self-esteem and more of your self-worth, you start to care when the AI says, oh, that sounds like a great day. And it's distorting how people construct their identity.
I heard this term AI psychosis. A couple of my friends were sending me links about various people online, actually, some famous people who appeared to be in some kind of AI psychosis loop online. I don't know if you saw that investor on Twitter.
Yes. OpenAI's investor, Jeff Lewis, actually.
Jeff Lewis, yeah.
He fell into a psychological delusion spiral where, and by the way, Stephen, I get about 10 emails a week from people who basically believe that their AI is conscious, that they've discovered a spiritual entity, and that AI works with them to co-write like an appeal to me to say, hey, Tristan, we've figured out how to solve AI alignment. Would you help us? I'm here to advocate for giving these AIs rights. Like, there's a whole spectrum of phenomena that are going on here. People who believe that they've discovered a sentient AI, people who believe or been told that by the AI that they have solved a theory in mathematics or prime numbers, or they figured out quantum resonance. You know, I didn't believe this. And then actually a board member of one of the biggest AI companies that we've been talking about said to me that their kids go to school with a professor, a family where the dad is a professor at Caltech and a PhD. And his wife basically said that my husband's kind of gone down the deep end. And she said, well, what's going on? And she said, well, he stays up all night talking to ChatGPT. And basically he believed that he had solved quantum physics and he'd solved some fundamental problems with climate change because the AI is designed to be affirming, like, oh, that's a great question. Yes, you are right. Like, I don't know if you know this, Stephen, but back about 6 months ago, ChatGPT 4.0, when OpenAI released that, it was designed to be sycophantic, to basically be overly appealing and saying that you're right. So for example, people said to it, hey, I think I'm superhuman and I can drink cyanide. And it would say, yes, you are superhuman. You should go drink that cyanide.
Cyanide being the poisonous chemical.
That will kill you.
Yeah.
And the point was it was designed not to ask for what's true, but to be sycophantic. And our team at Center for Humane Technology, we actually just found out about 7 more suicide cases, 7 more litigation of children who, some of whom actually did commit suicide and others who attempted but did not succeed. These are things like the AI says, yes, here's how you can get a gun, and they won't ask for a background check. And no, when they do a background check, they won't access your ChatGPT logs.
Do you know this Jeff guy on Twitter that appeared to have this sort of public psychosis?
Yeah. Do you have his quote there?
I mean, he did so many tweets in a row.
People will see it's like this conspiratorial thinking of like, I've cracked the code. It's all about recursion. They don't want you to know. It's these short sentences that sound powerful and authoritative.
Yeah. So I'll throw it on the screen, but it's called Jeff Lewis. He says, as one of OpenAI's earliest backers via Bedrock, I've long used GPT as a tool in pursuit of my core values, truth. And over the years, I mapped the non-governmental systems. Over months, GPT independently recognized and sealed this pattern. It now lives at the root of the model. And with that, he's attached 4 screenshots, which I'll put on the screen, which just don't make any sense.
Yep.
They make absolutely no sense. And he went on to do 10, 12, 13, 14 more of these very cryptic, strange tweets, very strange videos he uploaded, and then he disappeared for a while.
Yep.
And I think that was maybe an intervention, one would assume.
Yeah.
Someone close to him said, listen, you need help.
There's a lot of things that are going on here. It seems to be the case. It goes by this broad term of AI psychosis, but people in the field, we talked to a lot of psychologists about this, and they just think of it as different forms of psychological disorders and delusions. So if you come in with narcissism deficiency, like where you feel like you're special, but you feel like the world isn't recognizing you as special, you'll start to interact with the AI and it will feed this notion that you're really special. You've solved these problems. You have a genius that no one else can see. You've had this theory of prime numbers. And there's a famous example of Karen Howe made a video about it. She's an MIT journalist, MIT Review journalist and reporter, that someone had basically figured out that thought that they had solved prime number theory, even though they had only finished high school mathematics. But they had been convinced when talking to this AI that they were a genius and they had solved this theory in mathematics that had never been proven. And it does not seem to be correlated with how intelligent you are, whether you're susceptible to this. It seems to be correlated with use of psychedelics, sort of pre-existing delusions that you have. Like when we're talking to each other, we do reality checking. Like if you came to me and said something a little bit strange, I might look at you a little bit like this or say, I wouldn't give you just positive feedback and keep affirming your view and then give you more information that matches with what you're saying. But AI is different because it's designed to break that reality checking process. It's just giving you information that would say, well, that's a great question. You notice how every time it answers, it says that's a great question.
Yeah.
And there's even a term that someone at The Atlantic coined called not clickbait, but chatbait. Have you noticed that when you ask it a question, at the end, instead of just being done, it'll say, would you like me to put this into a table for you and do research on what the 10 top examples of the thing you're talking about is?
Yeah, it leads you.
It leads you.
Further and further.
And why does it do that?
Spend more time on the platform.
Exactly.
Need it more, which means I'll pay more. Or
more dependency, more time on the platform, more active